How Joshua Zirkzee will unlock Marcus Rashford this season. Today we're going to be diving into the tactics, the analysis and the statistics and looking at the blossoming relationship between Zirkzee and Rashford. This video is sponsored by LAKEY, but more on that later on. Let's get this party started. So Manchester United this season have lined up in a 4-2-4. This is the defensive shape, so a good way to start talking about the tactics. United press in a central way, try and force you inside and then win the ball back and transition quickly. In terms of the rest of the structure, what we've seen from Erik Ten Hag's men is either one of the eights moving to attacking midfield to join the two central players to create that kind of three attacking midfield line, but also the two fullbacks, both Diogo Dalot and of course Mazraoui inverting at other times, but other times joining the attacking line, especially on the right. Mazraoui and the Amad Diallo's relationship looks very, very good so far. But overall, Manchester United have used a shape similar to last season. But why I think Joshua Zirkzee is going to be really beneficial to Marcus Rashford is because of his profile, because of what he likes to do. All the analysis we've previously done on Joshua Zirkzee speaks to him as a bit of a deep-lying forward, a player that likes to come off the line and receive defeat, a 9.5 if you like. In terms of Marcus Rashford, he is a goal scorer. If I was managing Marcus, where I'd want to get him is into the inside left channel, the space in between the opposition's fullback and centre-back. That is where he's at his most danger in terms of attacking the opposition in those areas, cutting inside and getting shots away. That is the Marcus Rashford you want. But in terms of Manchester United this season, we've seen Marcus Rashford play quite wide in certain games. You know, arguably hugging the touchline, operating as an inverted winger, allowing the 8 to move inside and creating that 5-man shape. You know, as much as I like Rashford, and at times he's very, very good in those areas, I prefer him in those areas in the transition, not in settled possession. Where I prefer Rashford to be in these areas is tucking into the inside left position and acting as a bit of a left-sided goal scorer, you know, allowing a fullback to overlap him into the final third, very much operating in that inside channel. I think one of the good things about Joshua Zirkzee is he's kind of like Anthony Martial, where he'll come off the line, he'll receive defeat, and he's also a player that Rashford can play off. And I'd argue that getting those two guys as close together as possible is going to be Man United score even more goals. They're already starting to build a very, very good relationship, and I think tactically it's all about Man United playing a little bit more narrow with their wingers. United should kind of move away from the, you know, underlapping fullback, underlapping inverted wing back inside, and maybe should play a little bit more traditional with their two wide players playing a little bit more central and the fullbacks operating either inside when the ball's on the other side or traditionally overlapping if, again, you know, the ball is on, let's say, the right-hand side of the pitch, you know, operating that angle in the final third with either Diogo Dalot inverting or sitting to create a back three. I think that is a better Manchester United. I think when you look at the profile of United's two arguably starting wingers in Marcus Rashford, who's an inside forward, and Amad Diallo, who loves the inside right channel as much as he does love playing out wide, I think he's a lot more dangerous in those zones. His touch, his ability to receive is very, very good. But also, if we're looking at Amad, he's probably been United's best player this season. His shot-creating actions is the best in United's squad. He's nearly doing double the amount of Bruno Fernandes, which is pretty crazy considering Bruno's attacking output, but also carries leading to a chance or a shot on goal. And Amad Diallo is ranked 4th in the Premier League despite playing less minutes than all the players above him. He's a player that's provided great creativity in the final third, and I think also does, you know, do quite well with Joshua Zirkzee playing that role of kind of dropping off the line and allowing those two inside forward players to play in the inside channels. Again, areas that Amad and Marcus Rashford really succeed. I think with Rashford, you know, coming into this season, last season was a real tough year for him, and he wasn't in these positions enough in the inside channel. And again, we go back to the first 3 games of the season, we look at the heat maps, Marcus Rashford is in a real wide area. He's arguably hugging the touchline. That is not where you want Marcus. Yes, as I mentioned before, he can do a job there, but he is an elite level player if you play him on the inside. Also, as a centre forward, we've spoke about that many times before. It's an area that Ten Hag should look to again this season, and we saw signs of that against Southampton. We spend a lot of time on the internet. In fact, you're watching me on the internet right now. Each website you visit creates an opportunity for a data broker to aggregate and collect your data. Once they've got it, data brokers will sell your personal information, which could lead to more spam, even lead to hacking or identity theft. And this is where Incogni comes in. Incogni reach out to data brokers on your behalf, request a removal of your personal data, and then deal with any objections from their side. Obviously, you can do it yourself, but who has time to deal with 278 different data brokers? And even though they have to remove your data when you contact them, data brokers can start collecting straight away and you'll be back to square one. So if you want to take control of your data, sign up to Incogni today and use the code STATMAN. Not only will you be supporting the channel, but you'll get a whopping 60% off your annual subscription. What's more is that Incogni is risk-free for 30 days, meaning you can try out their service, and if you're not happy, you can get a full refund. Against Southampton, we saw Erik Ten Hag continue with this 4-2-4 structure, but the wide forwards looked to play a little bit more narrow. What this meant, instead of Rashford playing in the wide area, is he was attacking the inside position and getting Bednarak in 1v1 situations as the game moved forward. But from a tactical perspective, why this works is super important. Joshua Zirkzee is a player that loves dropping off the line and receiving to feet. Number one, it creates diamond structures for Manchester United, allowing them to play through the opposition better. This is kind of relationism, and this is something that we've wanted to see from Erik Ten Hag for a number of years now, shall we say. In terms of relationalism, getting around the ball, creating a lot of passing options, either hitting the number 9, either working the ball wide and then hitting the number 9, or even going into central midfield and playing through, but basically being very relationalist around the ball. So with Joshua Zirkzee dropping deep and getting on the ball in these deep areas, it allowed Rashford to play in more of his natural position, this inside left position, knowing that Bruno would drop back to help with the ball progression as well, and Christian Eriksen pushing high to create a diamond in midfield. It was a box at certain times, it was a diamond other times, that allowed United to overload the Southampton midfielders. You think they had a 3-on-2 in this area, or a 4-on-3, should we say, in this central area, which allowed Manchester United to really dominate the ball and play through the Southampton lines. But I think the big thing that affects Marcus Rashford at times is confidence, and his goal really allowed to build on that. Rashford goes through these purple patches of form where he really starts to do the things that he does best. Shooting on goal is a real prime example of that. Marcus Rashford didn't have a shot in the opening 3 games of the season. This is a massive problem. Rashford is a player that you want taking the majority of his shots in the Man United team right now because of his ability to put the ball in the back of the net, and we saw that with his goal. So we pick up the play with Christian Eriksen taking a corner. Manchester United scored 2 goals resulting from corners against Southampton, which is the best they've managed in a single game in the Premier League since the start of last season. But this is all about the second phase, is why it's super important to have your setup right, allow you to have shooters in the right area. And that's exactly what happens. Eriksen overhits the corner, and Amad Diallo recovers the ball on the edge of the box. We can already see Marcus Rashford pulling into a little bit of space, or a massive bit of space, should we say. His first touch is very, very good, and he sets Cameron Archer up. This is a qualitative overload. The quality of Cameron Archer's defending versus Rashford's attacking gives Man United a massive advantage. Simply shifts it inside, uses the curve of the ball to bend it in that bottom corner. This is a shot into a really good area. Even if it doesn't go directly in, it could have taken a deflection off of Matthijs de Ligt and beaten the goalkeeper. Really good goal from Rashford, but something that he wasn't doing in the opening part of the season. This confidence in his own game is super important. And we saw that after his goal, he started to really build into the game, going to the second half, receiving a ball outside of the box. In recent weeks from this position, we've seen him take a touch and cross the ball. That's not what I want from Marcus Rashford. I want him shooting from these inside positions. I want his head up. I want him looking to beat the goalkeeper. Rashford is deadly from range. I want to use that weapon for Manchester United more and more. He sees the keeper slightly off his line, looks to beat him, and Ramsdale makes a very, very good save to stop Marcus Rashford grabbing his second goal. But those ideas and that feeling around Marcus Rashford is important to build and get him into those right areas. As we previously spoke from a tactical perspective, Joshua Zirkzee dropping off the line to receive balls into feet is massively advantageous. Not only does it pull the opposition's defenders with him, out of their back four into midfield areas, but more importantly is it allows players like Rashford to play a little bit more inside. So even if balls get played into Zirkzee's feet, and let's say Bednarak's jumped on him and wins the ball back, there's enough players in and around the ball to win that second ball and then play instantly forward. Having Marcus Rashford and Amad Diallo arguably attacking your centre-backs, let's say, or midfielder dropping into into the line is exactly the position you want. And Manchester United frequently created these situations where they had the ball either with Marcus Rashford or they had the ball with Ahmad, and this was coming through Joshua Zirkzee. And that is a massive, massive point. Either Zirkzee turning or spinning or just playing first time, dropping the ball back, let's say, into a midfield runner. Let's say it's up back through to Eriksen and Eriksen plays through. United frequently created these areas where their inside forwards had the two centre-backs in 1v1 situations. And there's a great example of this in the first half. So pick up the play with Diogo Dalot playing a left-footed pass into the feet of Joshua Zirkzee. You can see the separation and space he's created between himself and his marker, allowing him to have the opportunity to turn. Joshua Zirkzee checks his left shoulder and there is open space, so he's right to turn into this area. It's quite good defending, to be honest, from Southampton as the centre-back wins the ball back. But as we mentioned before, because of the compact nature of Manchester United's relationalism and their shape, Bruno Fernandes jumps in and steals the ball. And this is where we have a big, big problem from the opposition's defences. Marcus Rashford spinning into the space behind the fullback. And this all comes from Joshua Zirkzee coming off the line to receive defeat, allowing Marcus Rashford to be that attacker in behind your defence. He's one of the quickest players in world football, so creating these types of environments where he's 1v1 with Bednarak, the opposition centre-back, is very good. And from this position, I don't want Marcus Rashford looking to create a chance if it's not on. I want him getting his head down and getting shots on goal, which is exactly what it does. Slight deflection off Bednarak and it goes out for a Manchester United corner. And that was one of a few moments where Rashford and Zirkzee combined together. And when you think about their profile, they work really well. Joshua Zirkzee's a creator. That's the type of forward he is. It's unnatural to me to describe a number 9 as a creator, but Joshua Zirkzee is that. He does his best work, as we mentioned many times, dropping off the line. He's a player that likes to have space to move into. And consequently, Marcus Rashford is the player that likes to go the other way and likes to have space to run into. So this pairing works really, really well, from not only from a tactical perspective, but also from a creating chance perspective. You've got one creator and one goal scorer. That type of movement and play could work really well with Bruno Fernandes, another player that loves hitting the inside channels with through balls. When you think about Marcus Rashford, he played his best football when being paired with either Anthony Martial, two players that can combine off each other and bounce off each other with little passes and playing really natural, or someone like Wout Weghorst, a big lump that would take the opposition's attention away and look for flick-ons or do the hard yards, allowing Rashford to play on that last line. So in terms of Manchester United, other ideas of not just dropping off, but what I mentioned before about the fullbacks giving the game a little bit more width, allowing Rashford to play slightly on the inside, and arguably playing as a two-man strike force with Joshua Zirkzee, a little bit of a pivot up front, because not only could Manchester United, stretch the opposition's defensive line out by instantly going wide, creating a situation with Diogo Dalot to pull the wingers over and maybe the midfielders as well, but then consequently, you can find that ball inside and straight away you've got massive, massive danger for the opponents. How many times did we see Rashford receive in these positions under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and then look to combine with Anthony Martial, and one of the pair would score a goal? That's exactly how I see the relationship between Joshua Zirkzee and Marcus Rashford, and they combined for a really good chance against Southampton. So pick up the play with Diogo Dalot in possession. He's just received the ball from central midfield, but he's in a slightly wider position. How Manchester United's wingers usually work is that one player will stay on the inside, one player will stay on the outside, with fullback and winger. So because Diogo Dalot's got quite a wide position, Rashford naturally is going to be inside. Again, an area that Man United need to get Rashford into. That's where he scores all of his goals. So from this position, Diogo Dalot does really well to beat Dibbling on the outside, then looks for Rashford again in that inside channel. Instantly, Rashford can carry forward. He's going to pull Sugawara inside, which will open up space for Diogo Dalot to overlap if needed. And this combination play between Joshua Zirkzee and Marcus Rashford reminds me a lot of Anthony Martial and of course Marcus. But in terms of the carry, he's going to drive inside, release the ball after he's committed the defender with Zirkzee in the space. Rashford's going to run off him. They're going to work a little 1-2. I love this pass from Rashford. He's not thinking. He's just playing natural. Flicks the ball on the right foot, back inside to Joshua Zirkzee. And now there is danger. One thing we mentioned in our Joshua Zirkzee analysis is he's really good at range at cracking low shots, something that goalkeepers find very difficult to get down to. Rolls the ball across his body, then cracks a shot that just goes wide. This is an area that I like Joshua Zirkzee in space. There's times at Bologna where maybe he took a long-range shot when there was too much pressure on him. He was getting closed down by one of the defenders. But because of Rashford and Zirkzee's combination play and the first-time pass from Rashford, creates this area of space for Zirkzee to get a shot on goal. And these types of areas are going to be good for Manchester United. At that point, we've just seen a combination play of Rashford carrying forward, popping a little 1-2, making the move, dropping the ball back. And from this position, Joshua Zirkzee has that quality in the pass. He could find Amad Diallo on the far side. He could find Bruno Fernandes through the middle, or return it back to Marcus Rashford. It's just little things that would really help Manchester United. And Rashford playing in this inside channel with Joshua Zirkzee is massively going to improve them. So let's focus a little bit more on Joshua Zirkzee's link play. His one-touch play, his first touch on both feet is absolutely outstanding, which will allow United to create more of these diamonds. This is a key thing to Erik Ten Hag's players, creating these kind of Cruyffian diamonds all across the pitch. And Joshua Zirkzee naturally gets drawn to the flank that United are playing on. These wide diamonds are something that Atalanta use, something that Thiago Motta's Bologna used last season that can really overload the opponent in these areas. We can already see from just a simple counting perspective that Man United have created an overload in this Southampton shape. In terms of why it's so difficult to play against is there's so many ball options, and Joshua Zirkzee's always on, that if the opposition slightly get their angles wrong, let's say their midfield isn't in the right position, Zirkzee's going to drop in and then either receive to feet and instantly get turned, or alternatively retain possession to potentially an on-rushing midfielder into that central zone. But the idea of creating these triangles will allow United to play better, which consequently will get more ball to Marcus Rashford in the final third. United need to start dominating games with possession. With Zirkzee, they'll start to do that. When Joshua Zirkzee receives possession, what you'll tend to see is Man United play a few combination passes or directly to hit the channels. And this is an area where they can get at their opponents. In this instant, Cobby finds Joshua Zirkzee in between the lines, and it's a simple layup. An up-back through combination, which not only draws the defender in, but it creates massive space for Amad Diallo in an attacking sense. This is a common theme in the game, Man United finding Zirkzee and then finding the space for the wingers in behind their fullbacks. We take a look at another situation. Again, Joshua Zirkzee just out of shot right now. Cobby Mainoo on the ball again. He's going to come into shot, going to drop him. What I like about this, not only how solid his first touch is to receive and then play out, but how he bullies Bednarak from a physical perspective. Get himself turned and then powers through the midfield. We move forward and there's even more situations. Again, Cobby Mainoo in midfield doing so well intercepting the ball. Mainoo's got more interceptions than any other player in the Premier League this season. He is really evolving as a player. It is great to see. But we probably need to talk about Mainoo and Amad in another video. So Joshua Zirkzee off the line, receiving into feet. Simple layoff. Really simple play. Break the opposition shape, receive the ball back. And it's a situation where we mentioned Marcus taking a little bit more of a narrow position in an area where he can feed off Joshua Zirkzee and vice versa. Rashford into feet, again, up back through methodology, or a sideways square pass in this instance. Zirkzee simply receives, plays back to Mainoo, and again, Man United work the ball to a situation where Amad has a 1v1 with the opposition. Great football, all coming through Joshua Zirkzee's really simple link play. And we keep moving it forward, there's more situations, again, scrapping for a 50-50, little nutmeg on Flynn Downs, and then working the ball out back again to that same area, the space between the opposition centre-back and full-back for Amad Diallo. Continuing the trend, looking at how United building, getting into the second half, still Joshua Zirkzee with the opposite movement. Mainoo springing into an advanced area, Zirkzee receiving into feet, and a first-time pass out wide that nearly plays either Mainoo or Amad through. Again, great centre-forward play. So in conclusion, when looking at Manchester United's average positions against Southampton, you've got a functioning team, a shape that looks good with a diamond in midfield, two wingers that are narrow that suits their game, and fullbacks that can go on the outside but also come on the inside. Rashford playing with Joshua Zirkzee is going to lead to a lot of opportunity and goals. But also in terms of Joshua Zirkzee's profile is good for United right now. And that is not slandering Rasmus Højlund, because I think Rasmus Højlund could work really well with Joshua Zirkzee as a pair, and I can't wait to see that. But in terms of the overall statistics, in terms of passes received, Joshua Zirkzee received 32 passes against Southampton into his feet. In comparison to Rasmus Højlund, he averaged around 17.9 per 90 in the Premier League last season. They're just a different style of forward. And I don't think that you can't play them together. I think playing them together could be very, very dangerous. You know, either with Manchester United, let's say, chasing a game and throwing Bruno Fernandes wide, having those two together could be ridiculous. You got one player that excels at running the channels and getting into those areas, and one player that excels dropping off the line. Bring back the 4-4-2. That is what we want. But in terms of the seriousness of that, those two playing together would work really, really well. But I think, you know, just for Manchester United, what I want to see more when United set up with Bruno Fernandes, Amad and Marcus Rashford, again, I think a front four that just works quite well. The combinations are nice. They complement each other. But what I want to see more, again, call me crazy, but I want to see more of Marcus Rashford in that striking position in certain defensive phases of the game. Because we saw in Erik Ten Hag's first season that when Marcus plays in those central areas, it can become a real goal threat on the counter-attack. Again, open space is the area that Rashford really dominates. He has the pace, the finishing to play that position. So in certain phases, with Bruno Fernandes operating on the left wing, putting in a little bit more of the kind of defensive work rate, Amad dropping in as well, allowing Rashford to sit with Zirkzee, similar to what would happen with Rasmus Højlund. But there was a clip against Southampton that really highlighted this that I want to bring to you guys. So pick up the play on 39 minutes. Manchester United set in a very nice 4-4-2 mid-block with Marcus Rashford as that right striker. Why that's important is because he ends up in a very good position for the break. So as Southampton build through their defence, Rashford presses out, the ball circulated out wide. Instantly, Southampton look for the ball and the run into the channel. Christian Eriksen tracks the opposition's attacking midfielder. Again, think if that's Ugarte, you've probably got a player that's a little bit more mobile in that situation. I'm not saying Eriksen's didn't play well against Southampton. I thought he was fantastic. But these are little points of the game where Ugarte would massively improve United. But in a way, Southampton attack. Matthijs de Ligt goes over. Southampton circulate the ball. And Lisandro Martinez makes a massive tackle on the edge of the box. Martinez defensively against Southampton, superb. But what this creates for Manchester United is a great counter-attacking situation. Bruno Fernandes with a pretty direct pass. So Rashford had started off in that central striking position, has found space. He's moved to the wide area, rotated positions with Amad Diallo, carrying the ball and playing inside to Amad, and then he absolutely takes off. And this is the danger. Kyle Walker-Peters isn't a slow player. He's a pretty quick player for Premier League standards. But Rashford is just so much quicker. The timing from Amad is superb. Again, created 6 chances for Man United. Only Juan Mata and Bruno Fernandes have created more chances since 2017 in a single game. The through ball's great from Amad, and Rashford just fires into the goalkeeper. But overall, I really like that. I like that position. I like the rotation from a defensive perspective and what the counter-attacking potential is. Think Lionel Messi at Barcelona under Luis Enrique or Cristiano Ronaldo under Carlo Ancelotti. So moving forward to another area of the game where I think United's wide forwards need to understand and attack the boxing with more aggression with Joshua Zirkzee. Joshua Zirkzee, as you mentioned before, is a dribbling forward. He's a player that has immense skill for his size. And this is a little situation where Man United were building with Maino, with Bruno Fernandes down the right-hand side. But I think the big thing here, if Joshua Zirkzee gets into this position, you need both your wide forwards, Amad and Rashford or Amad and Garnacho, attacking both posts because Zirkzee has the quality to go on the outside, beat a man 1v1 and then cut the ball back. That's a great little move from Joshua Zirkzee. And I'd say Rashford and Amad's positioning, they need to be more aggressive attacking the posts. You think if Amad had properly sent that near post, he's got a tap in on the line of the ball, or alternative that goes past, Rashford's got it. But also that does is it clears the defence back, allowing Christian Eriksen, who's just out of shot, to maybe attack the edge of the box. Little things to improve. And the final little thing I want to touch on is that Manchester United left wing position should be a goal scoring position. Garnacho scored a goal off the bench against Southampton, and his link with Joshua Zirkzee is very similar to Marcus Rashford. This is a little clip from the end of the game, but the way that Zirkzee receives defeat, instantly opens his body up and then plays a brilliant reverse pass to free Garnacho in behind is top class. We could see that with Marcus Rashford as well as with Garnacho. So on that left-hand side, you want Zirkzee playing as that deep lying forward, Rashford or Garnacho attacking the inside channel because both players score goals from that position. That's something that United needed to improve from last year. But massively, Joshua Zirkzee unlocks Man United as a side. Of course, this video has been brought to you by Incogni. If you want to check them out, there is a link in the description below. But anyway, let's get this party started. Actually, ended. GG's. See you later. Much love.
Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, why not check out some more content on the Statman Dave YouTube channel.